Well, the Commanders cut the cheese, and what should we make with the Sam Howell benching? All of this and more coming up on the Washington Football Maniacs. Well, welcome back to another football video here on the Washington Football Maniacs channel. My name is Greg, and this channel is dedicated to the Washington Commanders. And if you're down with that, please consider subscribing. And when you do, make sure you hit that notification bell so you will not miss another Maniacs video release here. Now, as I said at the beginning, the Commanders have cut the cheese. Yeah, things have been stinking it up, and Cameron Cheeseman certainly had been stinking it up with his long snapping all season long, and the Commanders finally did something about it after yesterday's horrible performance from Cameron Cheeseman, a performance which nearly got our punter killed, and then, of course, later on, a poor snap that led to a missed field goal from Joey Sly. Now, a lot of us are probably feeling like this has come 2 months too late because Cameron Cheeseman has pretty much exhibited this type of performance all season long. He has not lived up to the draft pick. You know, what's even more bizarre is the fact that Ron Rivera traded up to get Cameron Cheeseman. I mean, not often do you hear about a team actually going into the draft and drafting a long snapper, but it happened, and it was a failed bust of a pick. And so Cheeseman is out, and honestly, I know that Tressway and company couldn't be even more happier. I know that the guy was a good guy. I know that he probably had a good repertoire with his teammates, but at the end of the day, it's all about performing, and Cheeseman just could not get it done. His performance was just like Swiss cheese. Okay, I'm stopping with the puns. Getting lactose intolerant hearing myself talk. So Cheeseman is out. This leads me into this next story here. Sam Howell. Now, that's the big story. After yesterday's performance, Sam Howell was benched for the first time this season. Now, he's had some ups and downs all season long. He's basically been a second-year rookie. And I know that sounds like a hypocritical statement, but in his rookie season, he only played in one game. So this was his very first season of starting an entire season and being the starter, being the player, being the man, being the quarterback, the QB1. And he's had his ups and downs. He's played really well. I really thought, all of us thought, he started off playing really well, just took a lot of sacks, did hold on to the ball a little too long. We felt those were the knocks on Sam Howell. And if he could clean that up, then he's really going to show us what he's made out of. He did clean that up. He started, Eric Bieniemy worked to get the ball out of his hands a little bit faster, calling more of a, quicker hitch plays and stuff like that, getting the ball out of his hands, slants or whatnot. And he cut down on the sacks. He still threw some interceptions, and you're going to kind of see that in the first year of a developing quarterback. Sam Howell's strength, as you've probably heard from podcast to podcast, is that his strength is these off-time or off-schedule type of plays where he has to use his legs and scramble to create a play. And oftentimes when you're able to get him out of the pocket, that's when he's the most dangerous. Well, yesterday, even that kind of failed him, where he had one play where he kind of scrambled off to his right, threw back across his body, trying to get it to Terry McLaurin. The ball got tipped, the ball got intercepted, and after that, we pretty much didn't see Sam Howell the rest of the day. The offense just had not been clicking the last few weeks. We can probably also blame a lot of that on really the offense having to play catch up, because they were already badly in the hole with a lot of games they played. But at the same time, it seems like offensive production had been continuing to drop. week after week after week. And I'm not sure how much of that you'd actually do blame Sam Howell. I think he shoulders some of that blame. I think Eric Bieniemy shoulders some of that blame. I think the offensive line shoulders a lot of that blame as well. But in the end, your quarterback is finally benched, and then you have a starter journeyman coming in who plays exceptionally well, only missed 2 catches or 2 passes. Suddenly, Terry McLaurin is looking like the Terry McLaurin that we have all come to know and love. Almost had 2 touchdown passes there in just a matter of a couple of minutes. And then suddenly the Commanders have a chance to actually come back after being down by 20-some points. And it was all for naught because it took them about 10 plays just to get it into the end zone after being at the 1-yard line. Ridiculous. But at any rate, there starts the quarterback controversy amongst fans. Now, there's already been some fans that have pretty much have given up on Sam Howell this early in his career, which me personally I think is ridiculous, but you're going to have that because fans are impatient. And this fan base is impatient. Yes, I can understand this team, this franchise has not won anything of significance in 25 plus years. I get that. But at the same time, you got a quarterback who is basically starting in his very first year, and he can't be given at least a full year and be given a chance to play behind a better offensive line than what has been given to him. But at the same time, I also understand you want to see some development and improvement. And here's the other argument on the other side of it as well. Have we seen development and improvement from Sam Howell from the very first game of the season up until now? And personally, I have to be totally honest, I haven't seen improvement. I have seen him correct some mistakes that he has made, and you can argue that that's improvement. But overall, I haven't seen him take that next step to where I can safely say that he's a franchise quarterback. But at the same time, I think I'm going to use this excuse until it gets fixed. I think that you got to give him a good offensive line. You have a good offensive line that's going to protect him and give him the time, then I want to see what Sam Howell can really do for you. I think it's a mistake to give up on him after one season, a season to where, a new offense was instituted, a season where basically his offensive line is crap, and you're going to put all of the blame on the quarterback. I think that's a little insincere, and I think that shows a lack of knowledge in football. But here's the other thing as well. You do, even despite all of that, you do want to see a quarterback develop and take that next step, and he can take that next step during the season. And Sam Howell, I think he has remained consistent. I think he hasn't been bad. I don't think he's taken a step back. I don't think he's regressed, even though the whole offense itself has regressed. But I don't think that he's necessarily continued to develop, and we can safely say this is a much better quarterback than what we have seen from week one. That I can definitely say I've not seen. So here's the thing now. If Washington holds on to have a top 5 pick in the draft, and let's say they have a really good chance at drafting a quarterback, do you go ahead and draft a quarterback? I think, honestly, that answer is going to come with a new regime. And the new regime, a lot of times, they're going to want their own guy. But what do you do? I mean, do you go ahead and draft that quarterback knowing of all the other areas of need on this team? I think at this point, I think you draft the best person for that position that's available at that point when you're drafting. I think overall that's what really builds a team. You do go out and you do try to improve places and areas of need through free agency. But I think as well, when you're looking at the draft, I think you're really going to have to look and see who is the best player available at that position, no matter what position it is, and you draft. And I think that's what Washington ultimately is going to have to do, especially in the first round. Now, is that a quarterback? Is that a wide receiver? Or is that a left tackle? Personally, I would love to see a left tackle drafted because we have been used to having all-pro left tackles there. You know, whether if it's Trent Green or, Chris Samuel, guys like that. We've always been able to see a good, solid person there taking care of that left tackle spot. It's ridiculous, and I'm going to probably do a video on this, but it's just ridiculous how what we saw at the beginning of Ron Rivera's tenure here in Washington on the front, even though we didn't have Trent Williams at left tackle there, you still had a pretty decent offensive line. You had Cornelius Lucas, Schweitzer, you had Roulier, you had Brandon Sheriff, and you had Morgan Moses. You still had a decent offensive line, and the only missing ingredient at that point was Trent Williams. And other than that, the offensive line was pretty well solid. And you just could not... you just fast forward and you see what the offensive line is now. Now, if Sam Howell had that offensive line, I would love to have seen if he could have made some more steps forward this year. Honestly, I think that we would have seen a much better offense being played. But there's been so many downfalls in this team, not just on offense, on defense especially. This team needs a lot. And I really feel like that is probably more than what I'm willing to admit to. And a lot of my videos with Brandon, I talk about this team needs, of course, the offensive line. They need a complementary. Oh, I love to talk, right? They need another bookend on the defensive side of the ball because I really like KJ Henry. I think he's played very well for us. And then, of course, we need linebackers and we need a secondary. Now, honestly, the secondary, here's my other thing. We know that Emmanuel Forbes has had his ups and downs, but why is he not out there and why are you not at least evaluating him? You're not going to the playoffs. You have nothing to lose. Have Emmanuel Forbes out there being evaluated. He was your first-round draft pick this year, and he's hardly out there. Don't tell me it's to protect his health. I don't understand it. So there's just so many things wrong with, I think, this roster. We all know that there's a lot of things wrong with this coaching staff, which is the reason why this coaching staff is going to be gone by the end of the season. But we're also looking at this roster, and we're seeing that over half of our guys are free agents next year. A lot of them are on one-year deals. And all that being said, we're going to see a massive turnover in roster next year. You're not going to see the same guys. You may see, and you're going to see some guys that you're going to be surprised that are going to be gone from Washington next year. And I have my thoughts of who that may be, and we'll definitely talk about that a lot more when we get into the off season. But overall, you're going to see a much different, I'm not saying it's going to be better just yet, but you're going to see a much different team next season. And I think that whether or not Sam Howell is under center next year, I think you have to just trust the process, and you have to realize that the changes have to be made. Whether if you're on the side of Sam Howell or you're against the idea of Sam Howell moving forward as QB1, I think you just have to embrace whatever change is coming. And then if the new regime comes in and they love Sam Howell, you got to embrace that as well. Because overall, there's a lot of people out there who I just don't get giving up on a player that quickly, especially when it comes to quarterback. Because the thing is, you can go and draft a Caleb Williams, and I've said this time and time again, you can draft him and put him behind this offensive line, he's going to look terrible. Now you can ask, well, Jacoby Brissett came in on two drives, and he looked, he looked fantastic. And yeah, but you got to remember, this is a journeyman veteran quarterback. He's been in every single situation there is to be in. He's played in some very big games as well. And you're going to see that. You know, it's not like Washington put in another first or second year quarterback who's barely played and told him to go out there and see what he could do. A lot of times you have a veteran in there who knows how to help the center to call the protections and things like that. There's a lot of working together with getting the pre-snap calls and whatnot. So Jacoby Brissett knows a lot about doing that. And so, of course, you're going to see him come in and look good. But you can't hitch your buggy to a journeyman quarterback either. Not everybody can be Geno Smith, and Brissett is not going to be the guy next year either. But at the same time, if you're drafting a quarterback and you don't address the offensive line, there's going to be some issues. So I think, folks, we're going to wait and we're going to see what happens. But we got, 3 more games left to go. And finally, we can just relax and start to see real change in this team. Folks, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, give it a share. Let's talk about, leave me comments. Keep it clean. Let me know what you think about the whole Cameron Cheeseman. He's cheesy. I liked his mustache, but other than that, he needed to go. But let me know your thoughts on Sam Howell. I know that's a kind of a heated topic to talk about. But with that said, I will see you in the next one.